This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends talking nerdy.
This is the podcast making, public transit taking, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, Tim the Nerd, welcoming you to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy, part of the Deluxe Edition Network. Head to deluxeeditionnetwork.com to find out about all of the lovely shows on the Den. And seated next to me, we have the most electrifying professor in podcasting today, Professor Aubrey. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Good to hear that. How's your week been going?
It's been going okay. I've been, under some pressure, time pressure at work. So that's always, difficult. But other than that, it's been a beautiful week, actually. The sun was shining today, which was great.
I know.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, when people tell me, "Hey, Tim, can you perform under pressure?" I go, "No, but I can do a crazy little thing called love." Thanks to the meme out there that inspired that. But I'm doing all right. Just spending time with the dogs and the cats.
The dogs and the cats.
The dogs and the cats. Yeah.
And which do you prefer?
Cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a cat person overall. Also, animals in small numbers. That's a good
Fan of that.
Yeah, you learn a lot about animals the more there are in a concentrated area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, it puts them under pressure.
it really does. I think people don't necessarily take the time, when they do bring their animals to a place like a doggy daycare, they don't necessarily take the time. Not everybody, but there are some that don't take the time, if I can say that again, to think about just the emotional impact it has on their animals, because there are animals that are extroverted, there are animals that are introverted, and the introverted ones can deal with some really severe anxiety.
Yeah, and how, it's so sad when an animal is not feeling good and happy.
That is true, and I do my absolute best to make their lives as happy as it can be under the circumstances. And I'm not even going to knock the parents. I'm not knocking the parents here. I want to make that absolutely clear, because that's why you have a service like a doggy daycare.
Yeah.
It's just, it would be nice to see more people think about the emotional impact it does have on their animals, and not necessarily treat it as a dumping ground, because at that point, it's like, I think of that Family Guy gag about rich people with kids, and it's like this guy, it's like reading a newspaper, and a kid comes up, "Hey, Dad, do you want to play ball with me and do whatever?" And then the guy goes, "Esmeralda, it's talking again." And then the nanny comes and grabs the kid and takes the kid away. And there are people that treat their kids that way. There are people that treat their animals that way too.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the nanny in this particular instance.
Yep. I mean, I think for some dogs, it's probably better than the alternative they have. Like if they weren't going to get walked for 10 hours or something.
Oh, yeah. And, socializing, and I will say this as the most introverted person on the West Coast here, socializing on occasions is important. It is important to get out amongst people, even if you're standing in a corner shivering.
It's true. I mean, you have to push yourself for any kind of change to happen.
Yeah, like you getting me out dancing.
That's right.
That's right. Go back in the archives, folks, for that one.
Yeah, we should do that again.
Yeah. In the meantime, you are going to something rather special. Why don't you tell the folks about it?
I am headed to a thing called Safety Northwest, which is in Wasco County, on the Wasco County Fairgrounds, and it's a whole day event. And so you get there the night before and you leave the next day, so that you're there the entire day and night of one day. And during that time, you learn all about incident command, how to use radios appropriately, what to do in various scenarios that might happen at a large event. And that's who it's for, people who volunteer at large public events, which is great because everybody that's involved in a festival or something like that could be the person that saves some other people.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, in our thrilling series that you can find in the archives about Burning Man and all that stuff, you have volunteered in the past, and the goal is to volunteer again in the future. So, what are some scenarios you've encountered as a volunteer that you think these skills would have helped you with?
Well, honestly, I've never been part of an incident, really. I think incidents don't happen that often. I mean, the incident of the rain at Burning Man certainly was a big incident. And, I think what I learned there from being in the tent for 27 hours is that when you say be prepared, you really mean it. Like, it really tested my whole gear setup,
Yeah, you came out of it like, I'm a pioneer.
Seriously. Yeah, but that was a huge incident. There was all the people trying to come in when it was raining. There were the people trying to get out when it was raining, and nobody should have been doing any of that. So,
But everybody's special. Everybody's special, so the rules don't apply to them.
yeah, I mean the big the big rumor, which I love Burning Man rumors. They're so funny. So, the big rumor is that Diplo and Chris Rock walked 3 miles.
Well, that's actually, I actually can confirm that is not a rumor. There were pictures of that online.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when that whole thing went down, I was like, "Where's the professor gonna be? Is she gonna be like one of those people like in New Orleans during the floods, like with her shirt off, waving it around? Help us! Help us!"
Wow.
Yeah.
It was not nearly as bad as all that.
Okay.
Not nearly. There were so many people there in such a small space, and it was already designed for people to be independent with water, with everything. And so I think it was not at all like anything that would happen anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I don't see it happening in like Wilmington, Vermont, or where the hell Wilmington is. Delaware, one of those New England things. I don't know. Yeah, and I was the one who lived there. But anyway, so
You lived in Delaware?
No, I lived in New England.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but anyway, any final words on the event?
On the Safety Northwest?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited about it. I do have to do some homework where I have to do some government video training before I get there.
Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You might remember me from other government videos, such as.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that they're not going to be really insulting, sexist, racist instructional videos by law enforcement officers, because every one of those that I've encountered has been racist and sexist.
Oh boy, I don't want to imagine.
Right?
Yeah, so when you're ready to give CPR to the dame, do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that, Tim? Like safety lessons from the Rat Pack? Anyway.
It's more things like having a young African American woman in a subservient position to an older white man. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's subtle microaggression-y kind of. It's not as obvious as that, because if it was, everybody would call it out.
Well, in this situation of police doing it, I mean, being that they have systemic problems throughout, no matter how many quote unquote good ones there are, having that, I think is something to take into account when watching it. Like, I think if it were just 2 regular people, maybe not, in terms of that interpretation of, one being in power and one not. But, again, with the problems that the police have, I think that is a very fair assessment to take into account, and something that if people were actually thinking about, the impact of stuff like that when they're making videos like that, they would have made sure it didn't happen. But they're not thinking about it, which is part of the problem.
Everybody talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion these days, and they might have an office devoted to that. But these are often really poorly funded and therefore poorly staffed offices that are, some of them, many of them probably are ineffectual in their purpose. And what I'm saying, I guess, is that people aren't investing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they're not providing what it would take to have a change in the way that we do business and the way that we interact with each other and all of those things. And especially the police are, maybe there's one person in the police force that is tasked with doing DEI work. And
Right.
there's, 1,000 police officers that all come from a common background, which is not consistent with DEI. Maybe not all. I'm making great generalizations about the police because they do it to us. Let's do it to them.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think the correlation I have is, major corporations do the same thing. I mean, I used to work for a major company that made the computer we're recording the show on right now, that talked a great game about diversity and inclusion and all that stuff. But go to any Apple store, look at the leadership in there, 9 times out of 10, most of the time, lily white guys.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some there will be some hires that do fit the bill, and again, some places in the country, I'm sure, are going to have it better than others. But from what I've seen from my personal experience, it was just a game that they sell to the public to make themselves look good, pat themselves on the back. It's like the car companies that talk about wanting to save the environment, and they're going to have cars that give proper emissions by 2030, and then by the time 2030 comes, they'll say, oh, we're going to make sure we help the environment by setting energy emissions by 2040, and then in 2040 the same thing occurs again, because they don't fix it. They just want that public thing, because they understand that the general public, for the most part, is short-minded. They don't think long term.
Mm-hmm.
They see something in their face today and they instantly believe that. I mean, take, the example I think of is the woman that sued McDonald's that had third-degree burns on her lap.
Right.
You ask the average person, all they're going to hear is the line that McDonald's successfully put through, that a woman burned herself on coffee and dared to sue. How dare she? Doesn't she know coffee's hot, without knowing all the specifics?
Yeah.
And that's the sad part too. It seems like when it comes to DEI type of stuff, that's the new conservative buzzword for the N-word in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's not just DEI work. Many corporations have social responsibility offices, might have 1 or 2 people in it to, invest the company's resources in the community to make sure that the company is not supporting human trafficking or drug involvement or, bad stuff that happens in the countries where their things are manufactured.
Like major computer companies that, do business with countries that have child labor for the batteries for the computers they make.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't tell anybody, and nobody, the only place they would have to disclose something like that would be in an SEC filing.
And how many average citizens are going to be, perusing SEC filings?
Exactly. So that's the only truthful information there is about a corporation, and we don't go look at it. I mean, unless we're involved in litigation with that company, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. So you're going to be helping people.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's the idea.
I mean, at least having the knowledge makes it so that if you do unfortunately have to encounter a situation to where you have to know CPR or something like that, that is the beauty of what this is for. Now, I know you have been a big Johnny Depp fan for as long as I know, or maybe a Pirates of the Caribbean fan for as long as I know, one or the other.
Well, I have not been a Johnny Depp fan since the Amber Heard stuff.
Even with him winning that libel trial against her.
So, I don't know. Like, I think your name is mud at some point. But, I think that happens to people all the time where, somebody gets a restraining order against them as a power move or as a thing just to fuck with you.
I mean, that is true for anybody, in the audience that may be like, well, don't, yeah, stop. That is true because a lot of times when it comes to the police, the first one they're going to arrest is the first person, the first person that is accused of doing violence is the first person they're going to arrest, and not take into account everything that happened in a situation, if you know what I mean. Which doesn't mean, I'm saying people shouldn't be held accountable for what they do, I guess, but it's that the police don't necessarily take the time to find the nuances of what's going on.
Right. Anyhow, back to Johnny Depp. So I did have a huge crush on Johnny Depp for like most of my life, but I've kind of turned off of him. Like, I'm kind of turned off by people that I don't know for sure are not assholes.
I mean, the only criticism I would have from what I have read, and this is from like interviews that he's been directly involved with, is that he's the typical rich guy of, I have money, so my needs should immediately be met no matter what. Yeah, I don't have respect for that because, like, if you get to a certain position of power, whether it be, through like your job or something like that, or if you have money or something like that, you do have a responsibility. That doesn't mean, I'm suggesting everybody should like donate all their money if you make a certain amount or anything like that. It's like you can be comfortable and happy and have lots of money while still being a positive force out there. And, when you're off doing like the Michael Jackson thing of going into stores and go, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. It's like, come on, grow up.
Yeah, it's funny you would say that about Michael Jackson because that was like the whole tragedy of his life.
Yeah.
That he did grow up and then he threw back down.
Yeah, no pun intended.
I don't even get what the pun is.
I don't know. Just, I got you laughing,
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Johnny Depp.
Anyway, I don't know what to say about it, except he's not going to be in it. The reboot. So why this came up was that there's going to be a reboot of Pirates of the Caribbean. And they've said it's not going to have any of the original stars. It's going to have a completely new cast. And Disney cut ties with Johnny Depp during the Amber Heard thing and never got back together with him, even though, like you say, he won the libel trial.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that too is sometimes certain actors only hit it really, really big for just one role. It's like musicians. Like Mick Jagger puts out a solo album. The last solo album he put out, I believe, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, but I believe he sold about 900 copies.
Whoa.
But you put out a Rolling Stones album, it's hitting the top of the Billboard charts. Sometimes you're just known for that one thing. But also too, if you have failure after failure after failure that Johnny Depp had in terms of, big budget failures, like the Lone Ranger, for instance.
Oh my God, the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, Hollywood is so scared of losing money these days that, it doesn't matter who you are. You get to a certain point and show that the general public is not there to, spend money on you. They're not going to let you in their films, even for a cameo role in terms of the bigger budget stuff. Now, Johnny Depp is going to continue to make the smaller indie films, and I think that's where he should have he should have stayed in his lane and done those type of unique films that he was known for, starting in the late 80s, early 90s. But,
Really, you think an artist needs to stay in their lane of what the art they've been doing for decades?
because like with the Pirates of the Caribbean, he sold out. And you know what? We're talking. I mean, I saw the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It was a fine movie. If you're going to sell out, that's the type of popcorn stuff you should sell out for. But he wasn't putting in any real work in that film for what he can do as an actor. All he did was,
Oh yeah, it was totally one-dimensional.
yeah, I mean, he did a Keith Richards impression, which is why Keith Richards ended up playing his father, I believe, in the third movie.
Yeah,
Or something like that.
which was hilarious.
Yeah, but to me, but I guess Robert De Niro did the same thing, and I think that's probably what Depp had in mind for doing the Pirates of the Caribbean much earlier than De Niro started De Niro started doing comedies in the 2000s once he felt that, he had worked enough of like the Scorsese type of crime stuff because more money in comedy.
Yeah.
He did the Meet the Fockers not because it was a brilliant piece, but because it was a Ben Stiller movie, lower budget comedy that was, pretty much guaranteed to make a profit.
Sure, and he was, too old to be a leading man at that point.
Well, I mean, De Niro was never really a leading man. He was the star of stuff, but I would always put him in the character actor thing because he could, change like his body appearance depending on the role.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas someone like, a lead actor to me in Schwarzenegger is not a good actor compared to De Niro, but Schwarzenegger's a lead.
So what do you got on tap for us, Tim?
Well, speaking of movies, this is the first year in a long time that I've not been excited about stuff coming to the movie theater.
Really? Because you don't want to go to the movie theater?
It's not that I wouldn't want to go to the movie theater, and thankfully we live in Portland with some great independent movie theaters out there, like the Cinemagic. I believe we missed it, but they had a weekend of Tarantino films. We have the Hollywood Theater that offers some great classic choices. The Laurelhurst on occasion will still continue to play some great classics, but the new stuff out there, like the only one that caught my attention came out late last year, and that was the Iron Claw, which we did not get a chance to see. But if what I read online is true, it should show up on Max in April or May. I'll ultimately see that because, hey, wrestling, but just there's a new Deadpool movie coming out, Deadpool 3. Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman is back as Wolverine, and I could care less.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean...
Do you think you would feel that way about a Marvel movie?
That is a Marvel movie.
Oh.
Deadpool, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yep.
And it was your favorite?
Not my favorite, but I mean, the Deadpool movies were fun. They were funny. Ryan Reynolds, great choice as Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
The guy from Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. Remember that show?
Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
It was on ABC, yeah.
I have never heard of that show before.
Yeah, in 99 or 2000, but Ryan Reynolds was one of the two guys.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, now my lack of interest in movies, does that mean like my interest in stuff is dwindling and I'm just sitting at home looking at the ceiling? Of course not. I have like this time of year, as we record this, we are coming up on WrestleMania. When this episode is released, WrestleMania will have concluded. So, it's fun being able to catch up on the events leading up to the big show. If you go back a few episodes in our archives, we had our big Seattle episode where we had a tribute for Kurt Cobain, as best as we could offer.
Yep.
Type of deal. But movies, just meh. And I'll get the urge again. I'm not saying I will never watch a movie again. That would be stupid to say.
Yeah.
But it's just it hit me that this is the first time in a long time that what's happening in the movie theaters just way over my head. I don't get it, and I don't care to get it, and I have no interest in going.
Wow. That is really just such a turnaround. I'm really surprised to hear that.
Yeah, like Dune 2. I don't want to see Dune 2. I don't want to see Dune 1.
I was going to say, did you see Dune 1?
No.
You would hate Dune.
Yeah,
It's all about a desert. Like, the whole thing is just like a big dust storm.
I'm glad that, the books, I'm not a fan of the books either, but I respect Frank Herbert as an author. Let's put it that way. And if these movies are able to get more people reading the books, job well done. Kind of like what
Right.
Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings movies. I'll respect that. But yeah, I don't care. Not even for that stupid penis koozie Dune popcorn bucket. Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah, the sand lizard, sandworm deals.
Yeah, sandworm.
Yeah, they released a bucket, a popcorn bucket that was like the top of it was the mouth of one of those worms.
Yeah.
But it looked like a penis koozie. Like people, you can just imagine people done with the popcorn and then thinking there's enough grease in here, might as well start fucking it.
I cannot even picture what you're talking about. You don't have to show me right now. I'm just saying, like, what a bizarre thing.
Yeah, and that's Hollywood today. Somebody was sitting there thinking, this is a great idea. Nothing wrong. What's the worst that could happen when we put this out and let people buy this special commemorative popcorn bucket? And then you have somebody, and like watching the movie, they go home, they're probably high on something, and they look at the Dune bucket and go, fuck it, come here. Anyway. Yeah, I'm just, this is so far not the year for me, but that is not to say that, again, it's not to say that there will not be some point in the future to where some movie will get me excited again, like that South Park episode when the kids were running all over town to try to find a TV to watch the trailer to the new Terrence and Phillip movie.
But there was the Russell Crowe and Tugboat.
Floyd and Rondo, bro. Yes. Type of deal, yeah. But those were the days. So yeah, that's my topic this week. Now, how about we send it to one of our friends at the Deluxe Edition Network so they can talk about their show?
That sounds awesome. Let's do it.
All right, hang tight, folks, and listen to this.
Hi, I'm Dawn Brody, a comedian with a history degree and the host of the podcast HILF. History I'd Like to Fuck. Each episode, I am joined by a new guest who has brought me a subject from history that they want to know more about. Then I hit the books, I dig deep in the annals, and stimulate. We've covered Frankenstein, Houdini, Joan of Arc, Pompeii, the Salem witch trials, right? Ugh. Join us and find out for yourself that history is a party and everybody's coming.
Hey, Tim, before we get to our main event, would you like a cup of coffee?
Always. I live on that stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah. How do I get through the day otherwise? Caffeine, man.
Caffeine is the way. I agree. You've got to have caffeine in order to make it through the day. That is for sure. So I have this new coffee I would love for you to try because I absolutely adore it. And I have really good tasting coffee.
You most definitely do, folks.
Yeah, so I have this new coffee from Coffee Brothers Coffee Bros. And they are a small roaster in New York City that's run by two brothers, which is why they call themselves Coffee Bro.
Imagine that.
I know, right? And they have this really great website that sells coffee that they make there in New York City, or they roast there. Sorry, they don't make it there. Obviously, they grow it in places where coffee grows.
Yeah, I don't think the South Bronx is a good place for coffee.
No.
In terms of growing coffee.
No, I think you have to be much closer to the equator.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, here, give it a try. What do you think?
No. So good, folks. So good. This is something I recommend we all try.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's an award-winning coffee, and it's got really great blends, espresso roasts, and single origin coffees, which are all small batch roasted, you guys, in New York City. And we're in Portland, as you know, the home of amazing coffee. But for my coffee at home, I'm going to go for Coffee Bros.
And a reason I would go to Coffee Bros myself is because I love a good discount.
Oh my God. Yes, you do, Mr. Frugal.
Yes, if you go to their website, which you can go to our show description, and it will have a link there that will take you directly to their site, coffeebros.com. If you purchase some coffee from their website, and when it prompts you to put in the promo code, you put in FTN10, you're going to save 10% off of your order.
Wow, that's awesome.
It definitely is.
I hope everybody takes advantage of this wonderful opportunity to get 10% off this fabulous coffee.
I hope so too. Again, people, coffeebros.com. You can find a link in our show description, and at checkout, in the promo code area, put in FTN10. Let's drink some coffee, baby.
Okay.
If you go back into the archives of Friends Talking Nerdy, you will hear a version of Tim the Nerd that is mentally losing it because of the job that he had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And which is one of the reasons why I'm glad that, over the past few years, thanks to the Reverend Tracy and all that we started using Psychology Today as a source of material for the show to be able to talk about stuff like this, because there are a lot of times I think that people don't necessarily consider their mental health when it comes to their career. There are some people who, especially in the spot I was in at that particular time, I thought I had to wait until there was something better. And no, if your mental health is being affected to the point that, it was affecting me and, just making everything, bad for me overall, it's like you leave, you get a different job, even if it pays less. Now, like if you're earning like a high six figures and you lose that high 6-figure job and the only job you have left is a low 5-figure job, maybe keep looking. I don't know, but generally speaking, like the types of jobs you're going to get, depending on where you're at in life, will generally offer roughly the same thing within a few bucks. And if you have to take a little less for your mental health, that's, you do that. But we wanted to talk about, is your mental health hurting your career? We're utilizing an article once again from our friends at Psychology Today, written by Samuel L. Pauker, MD, and Miriam Arand. Again, the title of the article is called, "Is Your Mental Health Hurting Your Career? Don't Let Unresolved Issues Ruin Your Chance for Success." Now, you're the one who brought us the article here today, so what caught your eye, by the way?
Well, I just was thinking about this issue that, can we be successful when we're suffering with mental health challenges at work? And I think it's really incompatible with work to have any kind of psychological, neurological, whatever going on.
Yes. Now, to be clear, understandably, with any type of job you do, there are going to be certain stressors involved. But what we're I think what we're ultimately going to be talking about here too is the times to where your job is asking something of you that is just not something you really can't do because of your mental health. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what we wanted to do here is dive into the bullet points so we can create some conversation like we normally do. If you go to our show description, you'll be able to find the article there, so you'll be able to dive into the complete thing from the first word to the last, which we recommend you all do. But how about you start us off with the first bullet point?
Okay, so psychological issues. Patterns are often established in childhood and are carried over into adulthood, sometimes with very negative effects. For Jennifer, who they talked about above this, it became increasingly clear in therapy that she had a pattern of becoming engaged in power struggles at work. She consistently felt she was being treated unfairly and edged out by competitors. When recalling life as a child, Jennifer said she felt dominated and rejected by her parents and denigrated by siblings who competed with her for parental love and attention. Addressing the burdensome emotional baggage that she'd been carrying around for years helped Jennifer turn things around. She expressed anger in therapy that had been pent up for years. She recognized that she had been projecting old hurts on her present-day work relationships and made a firm decision not to let pain from her past dictate the future. With her increased self-awareness, she now resisted feeling victimized, getting drawn into conflicts that hampered her productivity and alienated from her colleagues. I definitely have experienced similar things in my lifetime.
Same here.
I definitely know when I had a series of older white male supervisors who I definitely projected my own issues upon them because they were in a position of power over me. They were, the most privileged people in our country. And, I didn't feel like I could be autonomous in those situations. So, and then you realize, oh, this doesn't have anything to do with those people. That was all projection. And that really interferes with your relationships with people,
I agree. I think back to my situation at Apple, and in a lot of ways, it mirrored what was wrong with my marriage in terms of, I knew for a long time that me working at Apple was just not going to work out, but because it was paying pretty good, it's like I felt I can't, like I said, I felt that I couldn't go below what they were being paid. And I felt I could just grit my teeth and get through this, and it will just magically work. Didn't work for a marriage, didn't work for that particular job. You have to be able to know within yourself when it is time to end something. And I'm not talking about ending at the first sign of conflict, because again, jobs inherently will have stress involved, and you have to be able to learn how to navigate that. But if you know deep down in your heart that, you're just not really welcomed there, why stay?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
And it is important to be that self-reflective when it comes to repeated scenarios in your life, because in the article here it sounded like with Jennifer that she was dealing with some consistent issues that kind of repeated, not just at work but also in her life as well. So being able to reflect and to acknowledge when you do wrong, because like I said, I was not a perfect angel at Apple either, but at the end of the day, I should have left.
Yeah, ultimately, you did.
Yeah, I did, and had barely survived my sanity. But hey, here we are.
Yeah, it really is a bummer to have a job that you do not like and that you feel trapped in.
It sucked. It sucked, but I'm with the bitches now. All right.
Okay, let's do number 2.
All right, number 2, psychosocial problems. Work woes are often based on purely practical issues. For instance, a schedule that doesn't allow for work-life balance, or a workload that is overwhelming and unrealistic. Such challenges require creative problem solving, a process that is sometimes hampered because of psychological or biological factors. Take Tom, a manager who came to see the authors of the article because he was feeling burned out at work. Given that Tom had employees who reported to him, it was clear that the practical solution would be delegating work to them. But Tom told me his employees were idiots. In fact, he spoke poorly about everyone. Other managers were incompetent. Even the CEO was inept, he said. Tom was certain that he could produce better work than anyone else. After several sessions, Tom told me he felt neglected as a child. He felt he had to fend for himself. He couldn't depend on others. As he spoke, he began to put two and two together. He recognized that taking on all the responsibility at work was based on his need for control, a direct reaction to the sense of powerlessness he felt in his youth. As he gained insight, he began making a plan for how he could change things at work and take some of the responsibilities off his plate. He focused on what strengths his employees had and delegated to them accordingly. He gave up old destructive behaviors in favor of new productive ones. Again, I think this highlights the importance of being self-reflective. In Tom's particular instance, I would be lying if I said I never shared like his insight on coworkers before. Everybody sucks but me type of deal. But that is not true. I think a lot of that has to do with like the mentality we have in the United States here, at least, about work, about how it's quote unquote family and all that stuff. There's no real, it's like you are expected to latch on to the corporate teat and enjoy it.
Right, like just even the whole idea of corporate retreats and corporate, field days and, being forced to go do something with the company you work for. Because you work for them, they can force you to give up your weekend to go do whatever with them. And they think they're doing you a favor. And it's just everything is like that.
Yes, like ultimately, I think to me, because I've experienced, personally what Tom experienced, the important thing I've learned over these past few years, especially, is the importance of just focusing as much on what you do as you can. Now, it's going to be impossible to not have another coworker's work affect you either positively or negatively unless you own your own business and you're the only employee. And there are going to be times to where another coworker their job will make it tough for you. And if it gets to a point where that's occurring regularly, then you want to you want to speak to that employee first, or, you want to go to management to get it taken care of. But, the more I've learned about, and the more I practice the idea of just, I'm here to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to the best of my ability, I think the more I've come to enjoy it, and not do this typical, fighting for, oh no, I gotta get a promotion, I gotta be a boss, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And no, I gotta work for me. I'm employed with somebody else simply because I have bills to pay.
Right.
If I had the ability to make my own money, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Right.
But, and I can imagine somebody with like Amway somewhere is like, oh my God, let's contact him right now and we can have him sell Amway. Yay! You can be your own boss, pal. But have some positive intent with coworkers. Understand that, they too are going to make some mistakes. If it's continual, then you want to address it, but do as much as you can to just focus on your own work. And to me, kind of paralleling what Tom experienced, I think I've come out a better employee because of that. Because again, why should I care about my boss and what my boss does? Because they're their own person, they have their own responsibilities, and all I have to worry about is just me.
Right.
And I think another thing too is the fact that, now I have the mindset at work that it is just work. I'm not going to volunteer for extra stuff. It's like, I'm glad the checks don't bounce. If they bounce, then I bounce.
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, you're trading your time for money.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just the way you put it that way. It's like you get so jealous of sex workers.
Well, I don't think it's really what you might think it is.
I know.
I mean, I think there's sex workers who have a great time, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. But there are some that it is just a job. I get that too.
Yeah.
But anyway, how about you dive into the next one? And I believe it is the last bullet point here.
Yes.
Okay.
Biological conditions, depression, anxiety, and attention deficit disorder are among the mental health conditions that can exacerbate problems at work. The negative thinking, irritability, and difficulty making decisions that are classic symptoms of depression can be off-putting to colleagues, magnify our perception of the difficulties we have, and impede productivity. Anxiety is another common deterrent to career success. Barbara, who worked in publicity, constantly second-guessed herself, automatically assumed her work was not good, and refrained from speaking up in agency meetings, all of which limited her job output, ability to impress others, and chances for promotions. She also reported having difficulty sleeping and being fearful of driving or flying, signs that she was suffering from an anxiety disorder. By treating Barbara's anxiety with medication and addressing her insecurity in psychotherapy, we were able to turn things around. Today, Barbara has a thriving career, one she finds rewarding financially and personally. One other condition that often prevents success at work is ADD. When left untreated, attention deficit disorder is typically characterized by impulsive decision making, poor organizational skills, lack of focus, and not paying attention to details. The need for stimulation can also make it difficult for employees with ADD to stay interested in their job for any length of time. For those with ADD, succeeding at work usually involves a combination of treating the disorder and finding work that is best suited to their strengths, interests, and energy. You might be surprised at how effective these approaches can be. Yeah, man. So I love that they looked at people project things from their childhood onto their present, more psychosocial, psychological issues, and then, calls out specifically biological issues. And I think it's not that one is more important than the other. It's just that you treat them in different ways.
And if you treating mental disorders like you would a physical disorder, like if you were not and this is the example I can think of, but like if you have trouble walking and you want to work at a place that requires you to walk a lot, maybe not the best place for you, type of deal. It's like, you got to be able to find the type of work that can work with your mental and physical health. And, like my example, like with my anxiety, I probably should not have done computer repair. Computer repair paid the bills pretty well for a long time, but just the idea of, the next person could be the one that throws a fit because they had bad service 3 years ago at a different store with a different person.
Right.
Which may sound weird, but people do scream and yell for exactly the same reasons, at like computer repair places or places like the Apple Store. It just happens.
I mean, everywhere people go, they act like that.
Yeah. And it can really negatively affect your mental health. Like because of retail, because of working retail and stuff like that, it's really hard for me right now to be able to, talk on the phone. For me, I don't like having the ringer on my phone because my anxiety level just shoots way up. And that's because of every time the phone rang at work when I did computer repair, it was like, this is going to be the person that's going to yell. This is going to be the person that's going to yell. And yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't jobs out there that, that you even with someone with like a case of severe ADD, there are jobs out there you can do. It's a matter of, taking responsibility for your mental health like you would your physical health. getting it addressed and finding the right job for you and understanding that it may take some time. You're not going to know if you like a job within the first day, week, month, even year. And also understanding too, like
Even 10 years.
basically getting rid of this notion, that you're going to find a career. Not many people have a career. Most people just have a job. And that's cool. That's fine. What do I mean by that? Like a career to me would be like if I was making money off the podcast or if I sold my book, that would be my career. What I do now that pays the bills is a job. And I value that job and I try to do the best I can at that job. But at the end of the day, if I win the Powerball, bye.
Oh, sure.
I'll quit that job before I finish this sentence.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to put your own well-being down for a job. Like, I think my oldest too. My oldest, he no longer works at this place, but he injured his back at work, and they pressured him to go back to work. And I told him, don't do that. Go to your, physical therapy and do all that stuff. But he had me as a father, so he didn't listen. He decided to go back to work, but he did learn. At the dinner we had for him for his birthday, I think he understood what I was saying after the fact, but kind of like his old man as well. He has to learn the hard way sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just like, if you broke your leg and your boss is trying to get you back to work the next day, like, that's not the job for you. And, you have to be able to understand that and accept that and have the courage to move on if need be.
Yeah, but it just brings up the whole messy weirdness of the American education system, which is that you have to invest your time and money into education to even be qualified for a career, most careers. And if you don't get any opportunity.
And when it comes to opportunities too, for a lot of college graduates these days, it is sickening how many like job opportunities you see that require bachelor's degree, master's degrees, and the pay they're offering is comparable to what I'm getting now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I see $25 an hour a lot.
I see much, much less for, and it's like, I don't get why they would even have the nerve to put that out there, but it's just like, what person that has a degree is going to be, I say that, but then I think of teachers. I was making more than your average, like, elementary school teacher when I worked at Apple.
Yeah.
And like, not that I would have sacrificed my pay, but they deserved a little more than me.
Sure. I mean, I think it's important not to invest yourself too heavily in a job, honestly.
I mean, I think of what Martin Luther King said, and I'm going to wildly paraphrase it here, but it was essentially, like if you accept work for somebody, you at the end of the day have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. And if you're earning a paycheck from somebody, you earn that paycheck. Well, mistakes happen, of course. You're human, but, if you sign on for a place and your job is digging a ditch, then you dig that ditch. Still, falling in love with the ditch company is not going to help you out. They're not your family. They're just a temporary thing in your life. And, whether that be temporary in terms of like you're there for less than a year, or temporary because, you may be there 30 plus years, but you still get the boot and a gold watch and, thanks for working here type of deal. And they'll forget about you quick. You're a cog in the machine. Most people are going to be that cog. Accept that. And I think life can be a lot happier for you because then you can, start maybe turning some of your other free time available towards other focuses that may excite you more. Like, it's like maybe, like maybe my current employment wouldn't be as good if I didn't have other, like, my creative endeavors outside of work as well. Something to shoot for, no matter if it is like winning, the percentage is the same as winning the lottery or not. At least I'm putting in the work.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, folks, take care of yourselves. It's do the best you can at your job, but understand that any job, unless you have a contract, if you're an at-will employee, any job has the right to let you go whenever they want, essentially. And if you accept that, then, and also make sure that you have a you focus for your physical and mental health as well, I think you would end up being just a better employee by default.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Any other words? Any other thoughts on this?
No, I think it was a very interesting discussion, an interesting article.
I agree. I urge you all to listen. Once again, you can go to our show description and tap on the link in there to go to the Psychology Today article to read it for yourselves. That's one reason why we go to Psychology Today, because they have such great articles. We want to spread the word.
That's right.
Anything more for our audience at home, or should we let them go on with the rest of their weeks?
I think that we should release them into the wild.
Okay, run, my pretties, run. All right, for the most electrifying professor in podcasting today, each Monday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long.
Now get to work. Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
On YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.